Is the world ready for Ready Player One? John Boyega goes against robots in Pacific Rim 2, and Black Panther becomes the highest grossing superhero movie of all time. Hello, everyone. I am Scott Menzel, and no, there is no Carla here today, and we are very sad, but I do have the wonderful Kit Bowen right next to me, and she will be joining me on this episode of Black Tomatoes. Next week, Carla will be back. She just had some things that came up last minute, so unfortunately she couldn't be here. So we have a very packed show today. We're going to talk about 3 different movies, and we're going to start off with Pacific Rim 2.
Uprising. It's Pacific Rim Uprising.
Oh, okay. Pacific Rim Uprising. Drop the 2. Just Uprising it is. Okay.
I'm just calling it Pac Rim. Pac Rim 2. Well, yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of the first one. I think it had... it's those movies where, they're fighting so up close and, you've got this big giant robot and you've got this big giant Godzilla thing. You're trying to figure out who's fighting who. But this time around, it kind of, the story was a little more cohesive to me. John Boyega plays the son of Idris Elba, who was the star of the original one. And, he says right off the bat, he goes, "I'm not like my father," so he's not in the fight. And apparently they have won. Earth has beaten the kaiju, but there's still the threat that they might come back. The Jaegers, that were the big, superheroes of the last movie, they are still making them, but they're sort of making them on the sly and, just in case, the kaiju come back. And of course, in one way or another, the kaiju do come back. I'm an action film lover. I love, that kind of stuff. Like I said, besides not figuring out who's fighting who. But I had fun with this. I mean, I was okay. It wasn't like, as bad as the last Transformers, which really just lulled me to sleep, if you could believe that. I was like, ugh. This one, it was a little more, not so much going on, not too many stories to try to interconnect. Like I said, I thought John Boyega was great, and I loved the girl who, now I'm blanking on her name, Kylie, I think is her name.
Yeah.
Who plays this 13-year-old, 14-year-old girl who builds a Jaeger from scratch, so she's scrappy, and I liked her, and I loved their relationship. I thought they were really kind of fun together and had a lot of quick banter between the two of them. But yeah, overall, it was all right.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I mean, in all fairness, with Del Toro not being involved with this, as a director, I know he's still a producer on the film. I was a little nervous because I'm like, why are they doing this movie without him? Because he was so passionate about the first one. And I did not like the first one because I felt the first one was like, I called it Power Rangers for big people because that's what it reminded me of. But I also had no character development there. I felt like I didn't really care about any of the human characters. And that's something that also is a problem in the Transformers movies. Like you don't care about the robots. You don't really care about the human characters. So in the first movie, it was a complete wash. But the girl in this movie and John does such a great job of building that relationship right from the beginning that I did care a little bit more about them.
Yeah.
And that helped the movie a lot. But when it started going to the end where we started doing the big battle sequences again, I think Michael Bay has officially ruined these types of movies for us. Like, I hate to say it because I feel like it opened as number 1, but it's like barely at 30 million.
Yeah.
Which is not good for a movie of this structure, of this stature.
Yeah.
It's not that good. But, overseas, it's making a killing already. I think it's like a total of 150.
Yeah, it's going to do gangbusters overseas.
Right, because that's just like the Transformers until the last one. But I feel
this also has a Japanese, Chinese, people in it, and they're controlling some of the action that's going on. So yeah, I think it's going to do well overseas.
I also thought it was interesting in this movie how much at certain spots it actually relied on people seeing the first movie.
Yeah. A little bit, but not too much.
No, but I felt like the emotional kind of hook of the movie relied very heavily on that.
Yeah.
With John's character and also the girl's character. I feel like that storyline needed to be there, and I feel like it worked better because of that.
Yeah.
So, and I couldn't remember anything from the first movie, so I appreciate the 2-minute recap in the beginning of the movie.
And yes, they do that. It's a nice little refresher course on what happened. But yeah, and I know you don't like Charlie Day, but he was in the original. And he was sort of the comic relief, and he's kind of the comic relief in this one too. But there's a twist. I thought he was fun. I like Charlie Day. I think he's kind of it's interesting to throw him into a movie like this, and I that was what was so, kind of the only refreshing thing about the original one was sort of that comic.
I just feel like Charlie Day plays Charlie Day. Yeah. So like once you kind of see him and you see him do his thing, like even in this type of movie, he almost feels out of place.
Yeah.
That's how I felt, at least. But
yeah, well, he had a lot more connection to this, so to speak, than he did in the first one, I think.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. No spoilers, apparently. But we actually forgot to roll the little trailer for this, but that's okay. If you wanted to roll it now, you can roll it now.
But now, it's our turn to fight.
They've evolved. And they could wipe out all life. Well, he's pretty big. Ready for this?
Fire everything you got! Y'all remember me?
Rated PG-13.
Alrighty.
Woo.
Yeah, woohoo. So the girl's name was Kaylee Spanley.
Yeah, that's
yeah. So just so we wanted to bring that up. But what would you say? Like, is it? We haven't come up with official rating system on this show yet, so we're working on it. So let's just do a basic one. Do you think you should see it in theaters? Do you think you should see it at a matinee, or do you think you should wait for DVD?
Oh, that's a good way of categorizing it. I definitely think you should see it on the big screen. I mean, I just think you won't get as much out of it if you see it on the small screen. So, but I would say matinee.
Me too. That's exactly how I would say it too.
Don't spend full price if you don't have to.
No, I think I paid about $8 today to see it during the day.
That's Los Angeles prices.
That's
folks.
right. That's right. But I think that's good enough. Yeah. Before we jump into our next movie, which is going to be Isle of Dogs, I just have to make a quick reference here to Conversations with Maria Menounos. It's a podcast that is hosted by AfterBuzz founder, and it drops every Friday on iTunes. Conversations with Maria Menounos features celebrity and influencer interviews, along with secrets and tips on how to be better in all aspects of life, from health and wellness to career, relationships, finances, and more. Let our Maria be the big sister you always wanted. Just go to iTunes and subscribe to Conversations with Maria Menounos for free. Be sure to rate and comment and let us know that we sent you there. Thank you very much. And once again, check out Conversations with Maria Menounos.
Maria.
All right.
Yeah.
Sorry. So, Isle of Dogs is Wes Anderson's newest movie. Let's roll the clip real quick.
20 years in the future. The Isle of Dogs.
Spotzer? That boy flew here all alone for one reason only, to find his dog.
Dogs are being held on a miserable island. Somebody is up to something.
Chief, you fight the robot dog.
Wait, what?
Sick him!
Isle of Dogs.
Good boy.
Rated PG-13.
Okay.
Still makes me laugh. I just start laughing the minute the movie started rolling, and then somebody sitting next to me is like looking at me like, "What are you laughing at?" I go, "It's Wes Anderson."
Yeah, it's quirky as hell. I mean, that's the best way to describe him. He makes movies that are very out there. They're not for everyone. Let's just get that right out of the way right now.
Yeah.
But I think this is an incredible film. I mean, just the animation alone, the mix of stop motion animation and some hand-drawn animation in there, and his quirkiness and the voice cast, which is just, I mean, it's like everyone in Hollywood's in this movie.
Yeah, and it's got all of his usuals in it. You've got Bill Murray, you've got Bob Balaban, you have Ed Norton, you've got, of course, Jeff Goldblum, whose dog character is probably the funniest in there. He's the gossip dog. But yeah, there's something about Wes. He's definitely one of the more unique auteurs out there, I think, as far as you know exactly what you're getting when you're watching a Wes Anderson movie, no matter what it is, you know. His last animated one, Fantastic Mr. Fox, again, it's, you know, the look of it is amazing. And in this situation, it's, you know, he makes a garbage dump look
I know.
you know, beautiful in ways that's just amazing. And the way the dog's hair would move, and stop motion animation is probably one of the more, you know, amazing things to watch, because you know exactly what they have to do to get that.
I mean,
shot.
it's amazing because
like Kubo and the two
oh
strings.
yeah, and I mean even Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah.
And the thing is that stop motion animation never feels dated. It always holds up. You can watch those movies, like you can watch this movie probably like 20 years from now,
Yeah.
and it would look like it was made yesterday.
Yeah.
It's just really well created, and just the sense of style that he adds to the film. The story itself is kind of unique. It's I'm pretty sure let me double check this. It is a completely original idea, which is nice. And it's written by Roman Coppola, Jason Schwartzman, and I'm going to butcher this last person's name, Kamuchi Nomura. And I appreciate this for having an original idea, because a lot of movies nowadays, like Fantastic Mr. Fox, was based off something. So to kind of have original concept, to use Japanese actors to actually voice the Japanese characters, that's saying something. That was something that Kubo, if you remember, got a lot of hate for, because it was very much whitewashing. And this movie's getting some criticism because, you know, Wes Anderson's directing it, but let's give him some credit that he actually went and found a Japanese voice cast to voice these characters.
Yeah,
because it's important.
Yeah, and he has those characters speaking Japanese the whole time. So you have at times you can figure out what they're saying, of course, because you know it's facial. You know what they're saying. You can just figure out what they're saying. But also you have some interpreters who would come in, so like a newscast kind of thing, and they're interpreting what's happening. And that was played by Frances McDormand. She played the interpreter. But yeah, it was. The thing is, somebody asked me, he goes, what is it about Wes Anderson movies that are so appealing? You know, because he is very, like we keep saying, quirky, whimsical, but he, you know, and the way his characters and the dialogue that he presents is very deadpan. It's very like, you know, sort of matter of fact and whatnot. He doesn't show a ton of emotions, you know, but the actors do at the same time. And I said, you know what it is? It's heart. He always brings his stories, there's a heart to it, you know. It's not, it could be a weird situation, it could be a family situation, and here it's, you know, it's this one's basically, you know, pets, how we love our pets, and man's best friend. Cats definitely don't get they get a bad rap in this. They get a bad rap in this. Well, they do get love, but against the dogs.
Right.
I'm a cat lover, so. But he does. He brings heart to things, and for this, it is. It's that when you see this little boy's face, and you know, and seeing his pet dog, and it's just you immediately connect with it, you know. And I think even when he's just kind of weird and out there, he still connects it in a way that you can relate to. Don't you think?
I agree. I think he, as I said when I opened this, it's kind of like he makes a movie for a very specific audience. But at the same time, if you get the joke, if you kind of get his style of humor, his branding, then you'll pretty much appreciate, I think, almost every one of his films. Because they're not formulaic, but they're kind of like the same tone, and the same kind of deadpan, sarcastic like delivery by every actor in the movie. And it's just, there's something refreshing about it. Like there's something refreshing about a director and a writer who believes in his own voice and doesn't try to mix it up to appeal to the masses.
Nope.
So that's what I like about Wes Anderson movies.
And I don't think he's ever really taken anything just for the job. I can't think of off the top of my head
No.
any movie that he's ever taken where it was just him just directing it. It wasn't really his project. So yeah, I mean, yeah, you got to give the guy credit for that. And he's formed this little troupe of people that are just, you know, really just shine in this way he sets things up, like Jason Schwartzman and Bill Murray and Jeff Goldblum. I mean, they fit well with the things, you know, the things that he's doing, the things that he's saying. So yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
Okay, favorite Wes Anderson movie?
Rushmore.
Yeah.
Rushmore.
I think
sure.
everybody says Rushmore.
You think so?
Yeah, and then they just go down from there. So.
Okay. Yeah, Rushmore for sure. Next movie.
Oh,
up.
we're gonna do the little rating of that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. See,
Definitely see this in the theater.
Thank you. Yes, definitely see this movie in the theater.
Yes.
Thank you for reminding me of that.
But you could pay full price if you, let me say this: if you love Wes Anderson movies, then pay full price. If you're like, I don't know Wes Anderson movie, then do a matinee, right?
But you should support this movie regardless.
Yes.
Because of stop motion animation.
Yeah.
You don't want that to be a dying art form. Enough people, like not enough people already see those movies. Like there's not enough people who go out and support stop motion animation. So it's more important to see this movie because of that reason and less about Wes Anderson.
Well, okay.
That's how I feel about it. Okay. Okay, so last week, Carla was talking about how she really enjoyed Unsane. And before we jump into that, because me and Kit actually have very different opinions about this movie, we're going to roll the clip for it.
No. My stalker is here. Or maybe it's all in my head.
Rated R starts March 23rd.
See, I picked the really short clips.
He sure did.
Yep, I'm doing like the 15-second to 30-second clips. There you go.
You sure did.
So,
Okay,
Kit,
give
go
it a
ahead.
taste.
You can
Give
go
a
ahead.
taste of it. Well, that's what I like about this weekend's movies is we've got a Wes Anderson movie and now we have a Steven Soderbergh movie.
Right.
And Steven Soderbergh movies are also interesting. He actually does like to play around with different ideas and themes. This is his psychological thriller personality. And I was absolutely hooked from the start. Claire Foy, who I'm obsessed with The Crown. If anybody out there, I'm obsessed. So she's Queen Elizabeth to me, and to see her play this character, it was a little hard for me to switch gears for a second. She totally draws me in. She plays this woman who's had to uproot her life and get a new job in a new city, and because of this stalker. And you find out who the stalker is. It was a guy whose father was ill and was dying, and she came in and read to this old man, and he felt connected to her some way because he was helping her dad. Anyway, so and then she thinks she still sees this guy everywhere she goes, but then it kind of does flip a little bit, and because she keeps seeing him, she thinks maybe she needs some therapy, and she goes to what I guess is a mental health clinic of some kind. And this was the part that I didn't quite. We're not going to dig too deep.
Okay. Don't.
Because if you start digging too deep into this,
All
you're
right.
not gonna. You're gonna start picking it apart. But she does go to this mental health clinic, and they involuntarily admit her for
Yes.
7-day evaluation. And she's like, "What are you doing?" She's trying to call the cops. She finally gets her mom involved. Anyways, this whole thing. But suffice to say, this stalker guy shows up at this clinic, and she can't convince anybody that he's this guy that's been stalking her. I was completely involved and compelled, and then all kinds of
Carla
things.
was too. She said that this was like one of the most craziest movies she's ever
And
seen.
by the way, you are in the minority. It's got a really good
I know.
rating on
I know.
Rotten
It's
Tomatoes.
fine. It's fine. I could be in the minority. It's completely okay.
Okay, so tell me your points. You just didn't care.
I had a hard time. Seeing Claire Foy, I give her credit for taking on a different role. I give Steven Soderbergh credit for shooting this entire movie on iPhone and making it feel almost claustrophobic at times, watching a lot of static shots, and, there's no, lights in a lot of scenes where it's very dark. But it's just, as the story kind of moved along, I just found myself not really that engaged. I feel, and I was thinking about this. My problem with this is that I don't feel like I got enough backstory on her character to care enough about her. So I felt like she was just institutionalized. Yeah, we find out she has this stalker, and it's like, I don't know. She's not very nice to people in there. You're not.
That's okay.
But I know, but there's no like reason to get behind this character in the first place. Like I don't know anything really about her to get behind her. Yeah. So it was kind of hard to kind of like, oh, is she crazy? Is she not? And then by the end, by the time everything kind of came together, I was just kind of like, I don't really care. Like it's the performances are fine. I give everyone credit for doing a great job with the performances, but it didn't have that hook I wanted. Like I was building up, and I feel like it was, I almost felt like it was really predictable. Like by the time it kind of came at the end when it was revealed, I was kind of like, and then the ending, the final shot of the movie, it was like so lazy to me. Like it was like, we don't know how to end this, so we're just going to do a freeze frame on this scene, and I don't know.
You're weird.
That's all right.
No, I mean, I get you. I guess I understand, but they do give a little bit of a background to her. I didn't need much more than what I got because Amy Irving plays her mom, and I kind of got a little bit from her what she's like. She's a cold person. She isn't a likable person. That's the thing. I think that's hard because she's been messed up by this guy. This stalker guy's totally messed her up, and she can't have a normal relationship with anybody. You see her going to a bar, kind of trying to hook up, and then she can't really do it because she keeps seeing this guy. So maybe if we saw a little bit more of how he harassed her, a little bit more of that. But that didn't bother me that much.
I agree. See, here's the point that I agree with you on. I think it's a very interesting character study to show how someone who has been stalked or who has become a victim of stalking and harassment or something like that, how that ultimately affects you long term.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a great, kind of lead in. But like you just pointed out, there was something missing there that just didn't connect with me enough to make me care. It didn't pull me in.
Right.
So I'm watching this and I'm waiting to be pulled in. I'm waiting to be pulled in, but it just kind of follows the beats by beats of like, okay, she's in the institution. Oh yeah, that's right. Juno Tempo's character doesn't really like her. They're gonna fight. And then of course, like, she's right. The guy is there, and it's just too formulaic in a lot of ways for me. And then
well, let me just throw this at you because I was totally uncomfortable with the whole thing because at some point I felt like something was gonna break. So this is my thing: was it all in her head?
But I agree, and maybe here's another thing. This might be an interesting disconnect. Maybe it's something where a female and a male sees this movie differently.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I've not been stalked, thankfully.
Right, But
I have had some weird relationships where they liked me a little bit more than I wanted them to, but they never followed me around. But yeah, I don't know. Also, the whole idea of her being involuntarily admitted, that's kind of I think Soderbergh might have a fear of that. Because, Side Effects, which is another one of his films.
Yes, I really enjoyed
that one. Rooney Mara, same kind of thing happens to her, but she does it. She's manipulating the situation, but she gets stuck there. So he clearly has issues with that, and I think he also really doesn't like the pharmaceutical companies.
No, he definitely does not like the pharmaceutical companies. Not
anyway,
at all.
I think Soderbergh is I find him a very fascinating director because he does get out of his comfort zone. I mean, he sometimes he'll, bring you back into that kind of thing that he does well, but he tries things. And I think, from this to Sex, Lies, and Videotape, which of course put him on the map, to like Solaris, which I thought was kind of weird and slow.
Yeah.
And
that was the George Clooney one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
And then to Out of Sight, which is one of my favorites of his,
J-Lo.
J-Lo and George Clooney. And that was like, a crime action, kind of crime drama kind of thing. And I don't know. He's a fascinating director, and I think it's because he for me does kind of interestingly draw these characters out.
I think what makes him such a fascinating director is that I feel like he does studio films and then he does films that he wants to do.
Yes.
And I think he has a great balance between both, and he doesn't really care because like this movie opened I think 11 at the box office. It's definitely not doing well.
$11?
No, box office number 11. $11. That's probably what the movie was shot for.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. I don't think he spent.
It's like everyone on the crew, they were just like, hey, bring your iPhones to set today. We're all going to just
But I bet you Claire Foy made more than the rest of the actors in that.
Yeah.
No disparaging there, you know, and like The Crown, she got paid.
Yeah.
No, anyway, I enjoyed it.
So you would rating?
Well, interestingly, I would give this. If you get a chance to see it at theater, great. If you don't, I don't think it's really all that. I don't think you'll miss anything if you get to watch it on television or if you watch it on a Blu-ray or whatever. I don't think you'll miss any of it. It's not one of those movies that you have to see on the big screen. So.
Yeah, I agree. I think even...
But
even
I think if you're a Soderbergh movie, you should definitely... Soderbergh fan, you should definitely see this.
I think even if you love his work, this is one of those that can wait. Because there's just nothing about it that requires you to see it in the big screen.
I disagree.
Okay. It's fine. It's completely
Carla
fine.
and I disagree with you.
I know. Carla's here in
say,
spirit, and she's like, she's sitting over here in the seat
like,
right
my
now.
girl.
She's like, nope. Right. So I talked a little bit about this movie last week. We didn't go too much into detail about it, and we're going to go a little bit more into detail about it, plus take a look inside the career of this incredible director, producer, writer, and that is Steven Spielberg. But before we do that, Ready Player One clip.
You could go somewhere without going anywhere at all. The Oasis. But the Oasis was in trouble.
It's a war for control of the future.
This is actual life and death stuff.
Are you willing to fight?
Ready Player One in cinemas March 29th. Experience it in 3D.
All righty. So they know a little bit about what my opinion was on this movie. You start us off again with this one, and then I'll go back to me.
Okay. I loved this. I loved this. I'm a Spielberg fanatic. I've loved him forever and ever and ever. Jaws is a movie that I could literally quote to you right now from start to finish.
Do it. Do it. We got 5 minutes.
What's your name? Chrissy. Where are you going? Swimming. So yeah, I love him, and I feel like this was a major return to a genre he's helped create, the sci-fi fantasy, and I feel like it'll go down as one of his classics. It may not be up there with like E.T. or Jurassic Park or even, those kinds of films, but I feel like it's still going to resonate and carry on his list of films. And also it's very 80s referenced. Apparently the book, which I didn't get a chance to read, by Ernest Cline, who also co-wrote the screenplay. He said it kind of in the future, but he said it with the guy who creates this, oasis, this virtual reality world where everyone escapes to. He's a big 80s person. So he has infused his oasis with lots of 80s references. And I just completely loved that because I'm an 80s girl. So I just, let's say that there's so many set pieces in this that are so cool. There's one particular one, we won't spoil it, of course, but it references a really great 80s horror movie, and it's just really amazing to watch. I felt though, like towards the end, it got a little long into the tooth, where it's like, okay, we have one more battle, before the actual, confrontation or the actual climax comes. So, but I feel like if Spielberg didn't quite know what to cut, okay, it's Spielberg.
Right. Exactly.
Dude, you can do what you want, buddy.
Exactly. No one's going to yell at him.
No one's going to yell at him.
I'm very excited. Carla's going with me as well tomorrow, and you're going. We're all going to the premiere tomorrow, and we're very excited about this because we want to revisit it. I feel like we've been doing so much press for this movie. I mean, I haven't stopped doing press for this movie since South by Southwest, where I saw it. I want to say something because there's a lot of hate going on right now for this movie. And a lot of people are judging this movie without seeing it because...
And what's the main criticism?
Okay, so I will tell you. The main criticism, like everything, is what did they change from the book to the movie? Okay, now please keep in mind that the writer of the book is involved with this movie. Yeah. So that's the first thing. So someone who's in love with his material is not going to let someone ruin it.
No.
Like, he's not. So And I need to point this out. You have to keep in mind that the way that the keys they unlock the keys in this movie, and the same in the book. Yep. So to get control of the Oasis, whatnot. The challenges in the movie are different. I will tell you that right now. But don't be upset by that, because think about the ones that were in the book and think about the rights that they probably had to obtain to get them. They weren't able to get all the rights, so they had to change it. So don't be upset by that, because what they do get for this movie is going to knock your socks off.
Yeah.
And especially, what is it, the second one, right?
Yeah.
The second reveal?
Second key.
Yeah, the second key.
Yeah.
But that one is going to wow you.
Yeah.
So please,
So much that you
please
will
give
like.
this movie the benefit of the doubt. If you're a fan, go see it. Don't read stuff online. I was almost going to curse. Don't read stuff online about this. Go see it for yourself and give it your own judgment.
Yeah.
Because I think if you're a fan of anything pop culture related from the 80s, 90s, and even today,
Yeah.
I think there's something in this movie for you.
Yeah, I was going to say, because even though I am an 80s girl and that's where it spoke to me, I have a feeling my daughter's going to watch it and have a whole different experience with it, because it's the whole gamer mentality. It's the whole idea of virtual reality. I swear, if I had an Oasis or a holodeck,
Yeah.
forget about it. I'd
Yeah.
never leave my house ever.
Right.
I would never leave my house.
No, and I think what's so fascinating
It's
about
just
this
cool.
movie is it speaks to everyone.
Yep.
Because if, let's say, you hate gaming, there's movie references in there for you. If you hate movies, there's gaming references in there. There's music in there. There's pop culture like all over the place. And I mean, this is the type of movie that you can revisit over and over and over again, because there's Easter eggs. The whole movie is kind of funny because it's about an Easter egg kind of
With
thing.
lots of Easter eggs.
Yeah. And the entire movie, there's a whole bunch of Easter eggs in there. And we've been doing so much press for this movie. It's kind of funny because everyone talks about how they wanted to put Steven Spielberg stuff into the movie, but because he was involved in the project, he didn't want it, because he didn't want it to be like a love letter to himself. So,
Which is, unfortunate, because, he has a lot of...
Right.
I mean, there are a couple little things in there that are like Spielberg, esque, but
well,
nothing...
they put it in there. They said
Yeah.
that they snuck it in,
Snuck it
and they
in.
were like, kind of like, yeah, it's like, you find it in here. You figure a way to edit around this scene. Go ahead.
Here's the other part to it is that the characters were really well developed, I thought, as
Yes.
well, and I think I think Olivia Cooke and Ty Sheridan, who are the two young stars of it, they have a lot of chemistry together, and they had some really, especially their avatars. There was just a lot of cool feel vibes to it, and of course I love Mark Rylance.
Yes.
And he plays the creator of the game, the Oasis, and so you see flashbacks to who he was. And just the kind of quirky, geeky, nerdy guy that he was. I don't know. He did that really well. And
Yeah.
now he's become one of Spielberg's main go-to guys, because this is his third movie?
Third, yeah. We don't count we shouldn't count the BFG, because
We
no
have
one
to
does.
count the
Yeah, I
BFG.
know. I'm just kidding. So I think this movie finally opens next weekend. Everyone,
Actually, it opens on Thursday.
oh, that's right, Thursday. As I'm quoted in the TV spots for this movie, see it on the biggest screen possible.
Oh, yeah. 100% pay money to see this. for
IMAX, if you
sure.
can. It's well worth it.
It's unbelievably spectacular to watch.
Yeah.
It really is.
So we're going to talk now, since it is Steven Spielberg movies, and this is like a big achievement for him, because
Yes.
I feel like this is something that he hasn't quite done before. This is really kind of out there for him.
Right.
We're going to
But he has. That's the other thing. There's
Well,
a comfortable feeling to it, but
yes.
he's also exploring. And he's
So what was the last thing, like Minority Report, that kind of dealt sort of like this with technology?
I guess it would be Minority Report. Yeah, I was going to say the BFG too, as far as sort of the CG kind of that was more fantasy oriented,
Right.
less sci-fi, but more fantasy oriented. But I guess Minority Report would probably be his last one that he did, like that kind of genre.
Okay.
That kind of theme. I liked Minority Report.
Me too. Really good. In terms of your favorite, if you, and we're gonna. How we're going to do this is we're going to stick to movies that he directed.
Okay.
Because if we went into the line of movies that he did, executive produced, and all that other stuff, we'll be here all day. So we got like 10 minutes. So we're going to kind of start off with like your absolute favorite, and we'll mention a few others, and then we'll talk about his least favorable
Well,
ones.
I think I mentioned already Jaws. Every time it's on, it's Jaws, and I'm lost for the next whatever it is, however much time is left on that. We just got a chance to see the panel at WonderCon, and they were asked on the panel if he had ever talks about his old movies, and they're like, yeah, all the time. He goes, you remember that time when the shark didn't work? I mean, that whole story about Jaws and how he got that made. But I'll even go further back real quick. Duel. I don't know if you've ever seen Duel.
The truck movie, right? Yeah.
With Dennis Weaver.
Yeah.
I think that was a TV movie.
It was a TV movie.
Anyway, he's just, I would say Jaws is probably one of my all-time faves, but I love E.T. and I love Raiders of the Lost Ark. And Close Encounters. I mean, those boom, 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 boom that he made right off the bat in his career were just, it changed everything. It just changed the way blockbusters were considered. He and George Lucas. I mean, the two, and they're super good friends, and it's just, they just changed the whole landscape. Then he tried to do a comedy with 1941, and that didn't work out so well. And so he's like, okay, he took a step back and said, okay, what am I going to do now? And he also wanted to be known as he didn't want to just be known as this director who could just do these, eye-popping sci-fi kind of things. So, when he got down and dirty and did something personal, you got Schindler's List and you got Saving Private Ryan, which are two of the most heart-wrenching films ever about a war that was, so devastating. So clearly he can do just about anything he wants.
Yeah, I mean, he's a very versatile director. Just last year we had The Post, and that was, we talked about this. It's kind of like a lead into All the President's Men.
Yep.
Just really well done. I mean, The Color Purple, Schindler's List, Amistad. Like he's been able to kind of create a world, no matter if it's fiction, nonfiction, whatever it is. He's a game changer. My first experience with Spielberg was kind of like the same movies that you mentioned. Jaws was like the birds effect, like Alfred Hitchcock, The Birds, like made me scared of birds. And my mom made me watch Jaws when I was a kid.
Made you watch it?
Yeah, and because we watched a lot. Growing up, we watched a lot of that. My mom and we bonded a lot over movies.
My mom wouldn't let me see Jaws when it came out.
We watched so many movies. That was the way. We would watch. Die Hard. It was ridiculous. Like we would watch everything that we could together. But she loves Spielberg movies, and especially E.T., Jaws, and Close Encounters. And I'm telling you, those movies in every sense, like it's funny because Close Encounters makes you really scared of aliens.
Not really.
I feel like as a little kid watching it, you feel scared. Yeah. But then and then you watch E.T. and you're like, oh, I love that. Like it's like an Elliot, and it's just like, it's so great. And Jaws just makes you scared of the water. And it's funny because, watching it now, it is like dated because of the effects back then, like in terms of that. But if you.
But that's not the whole point.
No, it's not. No,
the
it's
shark
not.
part of it is so minor to that movie. I
know.
think. Yeah, it's a character study of these three guys, and it's just it's like a buddy film.
And he really did. Spielberg also really launched Richard Dreyfuss's career.
Oh, yeah.
I feel too.
Sure.
And he's just amazing. And his earlier movies, the ones we're talking about from the late 70s to the early 80s, were really like staples of his career.
And then you've got Jurassic Park.
Yes, and then I was going to say, and Jurassic Park was the movie that, as a kid, I grew up with. I was a weird kid, but I grew up with surprising. I know, an obsession with dinosaurs. It's funny because in 1993 I saw Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas, and I became obsessed with like gothic stuff and musical and that stuff. And then my dream came true when Jurassic Park came out the next year, and that became my obsession. And I remember going to see that movie in the theater, and I was scared to death of that scene where like the cars flipped over and the T-Rex is there and the two little kids are going.
I just kept saying to myself, Steven Spielberg does not kill kids. He does not kill kids. Spielberg doesn't kill kids. I'm like, oh my God.
But it's so intense, and that was just a game. This man is a game changer. Like it's like I could keep saying that. Ready Player One is a game changer in a lot of ways. It's like Valerian on acid. It's like Luc Besson couldn't even think of the stuff that Steven Spielberg managed to accomplish in Ready Player One. But going back to Jurassic Park, like Jurassic Park became like one of the biggest movies of all time back then. And it was because it was so wildly different, and it was something that you didn't see. It was a monster movie, but like you cared about the characters. It was like there was a great story there about like a theme park opening, and then there was science involved and technology.
And here's the thing, he was one of the first to use CG like that.
Right.
That movie was done with what is now modern day CGI. I mean, he kind of, I mean, of course, Lucas spearheaded a lot of that as well, but certainly Jurassic Park was something no one had ever seen before. The dinosaurs looked so real, and it was so flawless in the way it was, put together that you couldn't. But you just real quick to go back to a second, as far as mind blowing. I remember seeing Raiders of the Lost Ark in the theater.
Yes.
And that first sequence, with him going and finding the thing, and then with it culminating with that ball coming down at him, you're right, and him, diving out of the cave. I was like this. I mean, I was flabbergasted. I was speechless. I couldn't get over it, I had never seen anything like that in my life. And I tell you, that movie still holds up. Star Wars, maybe not so much anymore, but that one also had the same effect with Star Wars, which was like, oh, what is going on? That thing coming across the screen. But yeah, anyway, I just wanted to give that little bit of information, how completely, floored I was by Raiders.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, there's a lot of great ones. I mean, we can probably do an entire show just like where we open it up and just talk about him. But in terms of his weaker ones, because everyone has some misses, what are like two of them that really kind of like was like womp womp for you?
Well, like I said, I never did actually see all of 1941, but apparently that's considered one of his flops. But actually, for me, I think it's the second one, Temple of Doom, right? The Indiana Jones. That just didn't hit. I thought it was really violent, and I don't know. It just didn't hold up. And I thought, wow, for a sequel, this is just not. Too bad that they kind of fell by the wayside here. I just didn't like it that much. Like I said, I just thought it was weird and ritualistic, and just children and all that kind of stuff being slaves, and it just rubbed me the wrong way. And the little kid too kind of rubbed me the wrong way. The little Asian kid, but then he came back with Last Crusade, introducing Sean Connery as Indy's dad, and I'm like, oh, okay, we're back. And then he did Crystal Skull, however many years later, and I was like, ugh. Yeah. Again.
Yeah. I mean,
so Temple of Doom definitely was not a great one for me. And I can't remember what else I said. It was Crystal Skull. Well, there's one other.
You said Bridge of Spies.
Oh yeah. Here's the thing about Bridge of Spies. It's a good movie. I'm not going to fault it.
It's just long and tedious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like these two separate stories, kind of. You had the first half of it, which is him defending Mark Rylance's character, and then he goes to Berlin, and this whole thing in Berlin, and I'm like, ugh. I don't know. Yeah, it went on too long.
Yeah, that one was, everyone was talking about it, and I just kind of like came out of the theater, and I was kind of like, I mean, it's fine. Like the performances, like you understand like why it was nominated,
right.
But in terms of like everything else, it was just kind of like, all right, great. Like it's not a game changer. It's not a movie like you're going to go back and rewatch. Like It doesn't have that historical element where you can go back and watch it like 20 years from now and be like, oh, this is why people love Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
It's not one of those movies.
My husband loved it, so, he will watch that again and again. But, I just didn't, it went on too long.
Yeah. The one I don't know if I would put Bridge of Spies that high up there for me, but what I ultimately would say, I think the biggest disappointment out of everyone that he's ever done had to be the BFG for me.
Oh.
I just was like, I remember reading that book as a kid.
Oh, okay.
And I just watched that movie, and I was just, again, it's one of those movies where it's like, it's so colorful and beautiful, but like the characters I didn't care about. And it's like, the movie like relied on fart jokes throughout it. And it was just like, oh my God, really? Like, this might have worked in like the 80s and it was fine in the 80s, but like nowadays.
Did they fart in the book? The Giants?
I don't even, it was so long ago. It was so
that would
long
be something
ago.
that Roald Dahl would put into a
probably, but like, again, like there was that build up, that scene in the movie. I'm not going to spoil it for anyone who cares to watch it, but like there's literally a build up scene, which is like 5 minutes of them like farting. And I'm kind of like, okay. And it's like everyone goes around and farts. And I'm like,
that's
okay,
their giant thing
yeah,
that they do.
but
as
whatever.
Giants.
Yeah. So that's what I would say is my least favorite. So, unfortunately, we're out of time.
Wow.
We did get a little bit of a late start today, but I want to thank Kit for joining me, and it goes by so quick. It really does.
Pleasure to be here.
I miss Carla. I'll see her tomorrow. She'll be back next week. We have to say where they can find us, so go ahead, give them your outlets of where they can find you.
Screen Picks is a site that I run. I'm also the Movie Kit on Twitter. So hit me up. Follow me.
And I'm Scott Menzel, the other Scott M, on Twitter and Instagram, and find me at weliveentertainment.com. Thank you.
From executives Kevin Undergaro, Dario Kristen, Tiana Hobson, and the entire BHL staff, we would like to thank you for supporting Black Hollywood Live, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. For questions and comments, contact us. info@blackhollywoodlive.com. Like us on Facebook, tweet us, or Instagram us at BHL Online. And I am the official voice of Black Hollywood Live, Scipio. Instagram me at KingXOBay. Thanks for tuning in.
Hollywood Redefined.
The views expressed here are those of the host only and do not necessarily reflect the views of BHL or its owners or principals.